with Martha Cass.
Of course. The Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the THS board meeting. We have minutes to approve, regular board meeting minutes, and nominating committee meeting minutes.
Move to approve the regular minutes.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Nominating committee meeting minutes. Motion to approve, please.
So moved.
Motion.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Thanks. Public input on agenda items. Anybody in the public? Streetcar system report. Mr. Bracken.
Good afternoon, everybody. We had a really good month last month. We ended up losing about 3.75 trips, and that was due to electrical power outage here at the barn. But other than that, we had no mechanical failures whatsoever out there. We also had no late trips for the month, so we had a very good month out there. And I'm very proud to report another month with no accidents. So we're on 5 months now. So I've told my staff we make 6. I'm cooking them barbecue out here for a celebration. So we did quite a few special services again. The end of the hockey season was last month. 41.14 hours of extra service. We conducted 12 PMs during the month, so we're on track. We just got off the phone with our vendor that's going to be providing our air compressors, and it looks like we're going to get them a lot faster than we expected. We had the bid for a year delivery, but they're saying maybe in a month to 2, so we could start getting our new air compressors installed starting in about a month or so. So that'll be a great relief off of us. They continue to be our biggest reason for failures out there, 1920 air compressors. So the replacement of those will really make it a good benefit for us. So air conditioning replacement is still on track. One is installed. We're waiting for that air compressor unit, and we'll have the prototype done out here. So once we get the first sample done, we'll have you all out and let you see the completed project for us.
That's great. How much cooler will the new air conditioning keep those cars?
You can hang meat in this when we get done, sir. It is dramatically cooler. It is amazing the difference.
Great. That's good news. That'll be really nice this summer.
Yeah,
sure.
It definitely, and I'm pushing to get them done as quickly as possible, at least to get the 3 that we're using for regular service done first as we progress through the things. But there is also the roof replacement is being done at the same time, so it does delay it a little. So the next one will be just an our air conditioner replacement. Then as we pull in our second one to start the roof replacement. So we should, our plan is to be through with all of them within the year of roof replacements and the air conditioner and the air compressor unit. So
news.
They got a good task ahead of them.
Thank you.
We have made an offer to a new director of streetcar operations. He's scheduled to be here June the 12th, I believe it is. He has light rail and heavy rail background. So we'll get him here to the board once he gets here and introduce him to you all. But we have moved forward with an offer and has been accepted. So
that's good news.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Any questions? Okay, legal report. Mr. Smolka.
All safe on the Western Front. I have nothing to report other than the legislative session is over.
Yeah, good.
Again, all safe.
Safe to go back in the water.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Chair's report, I have no report. Executive Director report.
I have been scooped on our introduction for the streetcar director, so Colin, I'm introducing you instead. Come on up. Since I have been at HART, we've had one director of risk and safety, and both of these areas have become more complex. In the past X number of years, we have a lot of stuff that's come down from D.C., from the Federal Transit Administration and U.S. DOT for safety. And as this group is well aware, it's a completely different universe for rail safety. So we have chosen to separate out these two functions. And Colin is our Director of Safety. So tell us a little about yourself. I don't know how long you've been in transit, but it's a hot minute. And he is very enthusiastic for what the good things are that transit does. So take it away.
Thank you, Catherine. One, very excited to be here at HART and also to be part of the historical streetcar. The streetcar was one of the reasons I came to HART because of the opportunities I think that this unique asset has for the community and also for our transit agency. Briefly about me, I've been in transit for roughly 15 years. I come from a transit family. My grandfather was part of CSX, Norfolk Southern, Amtrak, so it's part of my blood and part of who I am. Most recently, I was the Chief Safety and Security Officer for the Jacksonville Transportation Authority. I was also a Safety Director with the Louisiana Department of Transportation, and I spent 8 years with the Department of Transportation up in D.C. with a number of safety and security initiatives, as well as the Greater Cleveland Regional Transit Authority. Some of the things I look forward to bringing is, as our executive director mentioned, is that we have SMS that's going to be rolling out for the rail and getting our agency getting the plan together in terms of how we implement that, and also building a culture of safety and just enhancing some of the great things that the authority has already done. So, again, I bring a wealth of experience, especially with Florida's regulatory as well as the FTA's regulatory, and I look forward to leveraging those skill sets here to make this the top transit agency both in the state, the region, and the country.
He means to do this. It's an encouraged gesture. So thank you for coming to town and staying. I don't want to say that we hope you stay happy. We know you will because we're the awesome ones, but thank you.
Thank you.
So I got to introduce a director after all.
Nice.
There we are. We also had received a request from Director Doring Ahern after our last board meeting to do a little summary of Elevate, which was our 6-month engagement with a social media firm, a marketing firm. And I will ask Steve Rosenstock to share a little information on that. A point to mention was when we had gone with Elevate, we had received an unsolicited proposal. So we received a bid directly in from Elevate. It was while HART was going through the bid process for our marketing contract. We received 10 bids that had a variety of subs on them. So being able to go directly to Elevate kept there from being any kind of conflict of a perception that somebody was doing a bid with HART was also going to try to compete for the streetcar service. So if the streetcar board would prefer to go out on the street or proceed differently in the future or not do this, we have a lot of options available to us. And I think Steve has a snapshot of information today.
Yes. Elevate started in January, and it's a January through June contract. And when we discussed with our 5 different objectives, one was to get funding from the City of Tampa at the end of the service by March 21st. Show the value of the streetcar, gain revenue to allow TECO Line streetcar to continue early morning service, build support for the TECO Line streetcar being a common means of transportation, and increase ridership. If you go by those objectives, probably 4 out of the 5 have not been achieved. However, they were very active on social media, and actually I would like Frank, if you don't mind, to just give a snapshot of the social media. One of the things also we were to introduce our government relations person to other people as well, and that has happened for a couple of people. It was also during his legislative jaunt up in Tallahassee, so his participation was limited when it came to that. However, they're trying to pick up the slack, and we have another month and a half with them. And we do have monthly or biweekly calls with them to ensure and go over what events that we are invited to help meet people. And Frank can give you an overview of what they do with social media.
Hi, Frank Wazinski with HART. So actually, I feel like Elevate did not provide what we wanted from them in terms of social media. We looked at them as maybe being an extension of us, having basically myself be the only person. We were looking for them for ideas and a strategy on how to go about getting the word out, using their connections because they're influencers essentially in the community and business community. And so, having said that, we looked at this as more as an opportunity in terms of getting in front of people in these meetings and doing that sort of thing. But we do still have a couple more months left. We're looking at pushing the
naming rights.
The naming rights.
The naming
yes.
rights opportunity, and actually, are they given out? Were they distributed? They were distributed. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so we're looking to get these out. So that's still an opportunity. We're going to send these out via e-blast, put this on the website. And we're also looking at opportunities too. The Seminoles are having a pub crawl in August. Roughly 4,000 people attended last year's pub crawl. So we're looking at opportunities. We maybe come back to the board to maybe provide a promotional fare of types. So we're looking at them more so in this kind of a way, using their connections in the community to try to get more revenue for the streetcar. But from a purely social media standpoint, it didn't necessarily work out quite how we had hoped.
We do have the sales sheet now that is ready. Add info on the call to action goes to my inbox. So hopefully we'll get some traction on that as well. Also, we're going to do a e-blast. What is the target, Frank? The list.
Oh, there's roughly around 9,000 or so.
Around 9,000 of community partners. We don't really want to obviously go towards the to patrons and that kind of a thing, but we do have a list on constant contact, and we're going to be doing that either this week or the beginning of next week. So hopefully the hook is baited. Hopefully somebody will take it and get hooked on it.
Right?
No,
Okay.
please.
Refresh my memory. It was a 6-month project for $30,000.
It was 18,000.
18,000.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Is there anyone that is kind of holding them accountable for what they were? It sounds like they failed for the 5 parameters. So is there anyone holding them accountable for not meeting the expectations?
Again, we have another month and a half. We have already, in meetings with them, shown our displeasure, or at least I have, that they have not met them. Again, they were lofty goals. However, it's still $18,000. Lofty goals, especially with the streetcar service and the city of Tampa, from what we've understood from the board. We will talk with them.
And one thing to keep in mind too, though, we do have meetings. Caesar does have meetings with at least roughly around 7, I think 3 to 7 business community members, and all it takes is one sponsorship to essentially make the contract worth it. So all hope isn't lost. So we're still working though, and
we do have an active account executive, Justin Clements, that we talk to him all the time and get emails with him. So Akash, I'm sorry, I always get his name pronounced incorrectly. Akash, thank you. I always say Oshkosh.
Nobody knows him, right?
Akash. Akash, to me, has seemed removed, other than take a picture with me and then I'll show it to other people. So, yes, will they be held accountable? I'm not sure if we could do it in a monetary wise, but definitely from my mouth. And that I will promise.
And I do think that there is a merit to wing, and they were lofty goals. Some of these are things that there's responsibility, I guess you could say, for lack of a better expression, on a lot of entities. So if one of the chargeables was to secure funding to make sure the morning pilot program could go on, should there be a marketing component to that? There absolutely should. But I don't think we're saying that Elevate by themselves was the only entity, that their work by itself was the only thing that was going to make us successful or not. I think there's an opportunity to say, realistically, are there better ways to set goals on contracts like that? Is it not just word of mouth, but it's, how many impressions, and I know we were looking at getting new followers, et cetera, but, if we were holding them uniquely responsible for getting more money from the city of Tampa next year, thanks, Bob, then he's off the hook. So I think there is a little exercise in there of what is appropriate for us to think that we can influence the social media with the footprint that we have.
Okay.
Dr. Robinson and then Mr. Jacob.
That goes really to my question, is going back to what were the 4 items that were not done, and do we realistically think they'll make a dent in those or be able to accomplish any of those in the month and a half or whatever that's left?
They're lofty goals. I don't know if I can answer that, because what they are doing is they are introducing, in a lot of the meetings that they go to, introducing people. So whether or not people are interested, whether or not we're in their current fiscal year, whether or not they have money, whether or not they can plan for it in advance, there's a lot of dynamics that go into it, because we're talking about sponsorships from 10,000 plus to over 25,000 plus. So we hope, obviously we hope, we have 6 weeks about left. We hope something happens, but I can't guarantee that anything would happen.
Steve, beyond the social media outreach that they've done, what were the other 4 that they didn't?
The other 4 were get funding from the city of Tampa, thanks Bob, at the end of service by March 21st. Show the value of the streetcar. That could have been accomplished with social media. Gain revenue to allow the streetcar to continue early morning service through March 24th. And remember, they started in January, so that was a very lofty goal, but they did accept it. Build support for the streetcar line being a common means of transportation. And increase ridership. There's no way to track that.
Well, how are we measuring build support for streetcars as a means of transportation? How are we measuring their success on that?
It would be through social media only. There was no.
But is that
measurement.
increased? Was it like that they didn't do a campaign? They did a campaign. It led to more impressions.
That would have been through social media only.
So it would be useful for us to see how we're measuring their success in those things. I mean, and again, clearly, if the goal was they were supposed to help get money for morning service, how would we measure their success in that? Because they're, again, my feeling is this: what is it we could hold them responsible for? And if it's that if there was not a single blog post or social media focus on this is a viable mode of transportation, that's a big fat goose egg. But if they were posting on it, how are we measuring that is or is not successful?
Well, and I think, too, again, I think the thing is the focus of this not being on the social media aspect. I think this was more so about getting in front and trying to sell the streetcar. So I think more of these meetings and getting in front of people and networking, that's the value they provide. Because honestly, once we got involved with them, we were misled in what they were. I think, admittedly, even Justin would tell you that they're not necessarily a social media firm. That's not what they do. So, but having said that, though, these meetings are what in networking could end up, maybe not right now, but long term could end up providing great value to streetcar. So, I mean, all it takes is to sell a couple stations or to get, again, selling a charter service or something like that we can start getting the ball rolling, and that's where we can get the money back.
Well, and Steve, you make a good point. They accepted these goals.
Yes.
And so if there's not additional metrics set in and the vendor accepted that as a success measure, that's where we land. It's an excellent point.
May I add? Thank you. I'm in the business of performing to contracts. And I would tell you, based on what you just told me, if I had a contract in my world and was not performing to that level, I would have already been fired. Introducing us to somebody and saying hi and telling them to exchange business cards is not introducing you to somebody. It's been my experience with them. To hear this I'm extremely unhappy with this, in particular since Akash lobbied hard with me individually. I told him not to do that and talk to our general counsel about it, and I did confer with our general counsel about that to make sure that was not something that was inappropriate. But to hear what I've just heard, based on the fact they accepted that, if you talk a big game, you got to perform a big game, and I think it's time for us to sit them down and say, you either perform to the game you've been hired, or thanks, and we'll see you around. So, I mean, that's how strongly I feel about it. So, Steve, whatever you tell them in that regard, I certainly have no problem in backing you up in any level whatsoever to do that, because I think it's appropriate. This is a serious situation, and it's very important to us. And if they're not performing, we need to let them know or find another means, I think, is where I'm at with it, to be honest. But thank you.
I will definitely convey the board's feeling as well as ours.
Mr. Suarez, welcome.
Thank you. Sorry I'm late, and I will tell you what Mr. Jacob just said is absolutely correct. I used to work in an agency that was owned by a bank, and bankers are paid by activity, not by results in terms of what the sale is, and I'm paid by what the sale is. To me, the sale is them using their media contacts and their other connections in order to make sure that we get some kind of advertising revenue by virtue of naming rights or any other kind of advertising revenue. So, I mean, if we're going to go by impressions, and I'm looking at our social media from April of this year, 2872 followers, if I'm reading this correctly. Facebook likes, 4,647 likes. one blog post and one video. Well, I know that, and this is just from me reading different things, you need more videos, you need more posts, you need to make sure that people are always actively engaged. It is a hard and long time process where you have to be always presenting us online, on Twitter, on Facebook. If that, it should be the measurement of what they're doing. And unfortunately, it doesn't sound like they did much of that either, because the end result is none of any positive result. So, and I see you shaking your head. I think that's probably something that you discussed with them. And, I will tell you, as someone that does do Twitter, I probably have posted more HART stuff. And knowing how much they got paid, I'm going to go and talk to my lawyer and see if we can't get a better deal, because I did it all for free. So we're going to have to work on that. But seriously, they need to come to the table and say, what is it that you were expecting to do, and why have you not performed any of it? That's a big, big issue for all of us. And I think Mr. Jacob said it directly, which is we're not going to support people that aren't willing to actually pay, live up to their contractual obligations. And to me, I think part of the problem is that it's a little bit nebulous on the contract, and I have to look at the language to see what else it says. But even if you take out one of those, which was, I think the fourth one seemed really nebulous, which is sort of like, okay, take that one out. Those others still aren't being met. I think that we really need to figure out how we go forward from here in terms of paying any more money out.
Well, and I would say to the board's preference, we would definitely recommend going out for some level of bid, some competition on that, if the board chooses that. We also have now, on the 1st of May, HART has awarded a marketing contract. So we can always ask those vendors to give us, we can ask them for task orders for prices and see how that compares back. So there are options which are there. This is the first time we've had a marketing firm on contract with HART since 2011, maybe? 2012, so that's another resource which you wouldn't have to go out and compete. You could get task orders with prices baked into it. So we do have options for how the board would like to go forward.
Are we splitting the cost of this with you?
I think it was 100% for Streetcar.
100% Streetcar.
So we're eating this.
Correct.
Okay. Do we have the right to discontinue them tomorrow morning?
There is, from the agreement that I saw, there is no language that says no.
It says no? Yeah, I've kind of gotten the impression that these guys they didn't sell us a bill of goods. They like what they do, but they haven't raised a nickel. They're not really as active as I had thought they would be either, which is I know why Abby brought it up. We can give them until the end of their 6 months to produce something, or we can terminate them.
One of the things that we
$4,500. I mean, whatever you guys want. I don't care.
One of the things, the way that we pay is we pay it in advance for the month. So we're paid up through May, and we did not approve June yet.
And I'll defer to council. We would have to, if we were doing a cure notice, the cure notice probably would not be achieved until the first part of June anyhow. So if the payment is a month in advance, we're going to get Frank and Steve, you guys are the experts, so maybe our best course of action is just a very firmly worded, hey, here's the minutes which are going to be published, and this is your record. What are you going to do to rectify this so the minutes at the next meeting are going to reflect you're still a good business investment?
Sure. I'll be happy to do that.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I use social media too.
Yeah.
Well, so can we, and I guess maybe this is a legal question, can we, as part of the contract, can we just say we're not going to pay you for the next couple of months, and do we have the right to do that?
You have
They're saying
one
is they can pay
installment
for May
left.
already.
Right, no, I know for May, but I
And
mean,
June's it.
and June's the last month.
June's it.
Well, instead of paying for the last month, maybe we can just say we're not going to pay for that last month. I'm just saying, I don't know if legally we can do that.
I don't have the contract in front of me. I'd like to take a look at it.
Okay.
But if they have not performed in accordance with essentially reasonable practices within that particular business, then they're in breach. So we could either terminate, we could claim that they failed to perform and seek damages against them. Those are all options that are available. I would like to take a look at the contract, though, because I don't have it memorized in my head at this point to see what it provided. But
I do have an email, though, from Justin Klinnemans, the account executive, saying that they did not reach some of the goals.
So they've conceded it. If they didn't
Yes, I
meet it.
do.
So,
I
I mean,
do
the real
have it
question
well.
is whether they performed in a workmanlike manner effectively. And, you know, if they have not made the effort, then we could declare them in breach. We could go after them for what we paid, or we could terminate and just not pay them anymore.
Is it possible for me to make a motion for you to do that investigation based on the information that was provided here and ask that the contract be terminated a month early if you have found that they have been in breach or is terminable?
Okay.
Okay, so I'll make that motion.
Second.
Yeah. I have a motion and a second, but I have somebody who's there.
Comment.
I'm still practicing as being chair. I don't do it anymore.
I know. I would. Again, it's the board's pleasure. Let staff sit down with David, look at the contract. Again, it's breach on a contract. It sounds like we have some pretty nebulous goals which are on there. You know, can we terminate if they had a 6-month window to do these things? And there's always a possibility they could do stuff on June 30th. I would say rather than just go ahead and off with their head, potentially maybe allow staff to confer and have David provide a recommendation back, and you delegate authority to the chair to take action if necessary. That may be.
Yeah, because
And you can always withhold the last
for
name.
sure. But the op-ed
Until
is
you
you
resolve it.
raise hell with them, and you give them 6 weeks. That's all they have allowed to do some major production on their behalf, or we'll be taking up the matter of their contract in June
Yes.
about whether to renew or not. That gives them motivation. They're not bad people. They just haven't.
I don't think you have a renewable.
No.
I don't think it's renewable at
There
all.
is no option to renew.
Since it's not renewable, you have essentially it's 6 weeks, or we make sure everybody sees a link to the minutes type of thing, because this is a very strong testimonial on the performance of the entity, and they have one board meeting to try to get this fixed. Because everything that is repeated today in these minutes, if I'm looking to hire them in the future and I see these minutes, these are very strong statements.
We do have a motion and a second.
Well, and I will amend my motion to indicate that you would have the authority as chair to then make a final decision. I don't want to make it so that Catherine is in a situation where they may have something in line for June, but at the same time, I think that the message has to be sent. So I think that we need to make sure that we're doing everything legally, and that's why I want to make sure he has it, and then give you the authority to then make a decision based on his recommendation.
Let me make sure I understand what you're saying. Looking at your motion, you amended it to add in that Catherine will be able to make the final decision.
The chair.
The chair.
The chair would make the final
will be able to
decision.
make the final decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever that is. Right?
We trust you, Mike.
Thank you. So you all good with all this?
Yes.
Any other discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Do we get a second?
Yeah, we
Just
do.
use Bob's.
Excuse me?
You were the second.
Let me ask you a question.
I've been accused of so many things already today. I just
After it
wanted-
got amended, I wasn't sure if we needed a new second.
Yeah, I wanted to discern if something else, some other slur had been issued against me.
No slurs.
Yeah, won't talk
There have
anymore.
been no slurs
yet.
today. Just
Give us time.
In view of our experience with this contract, going forward, are there some means that we can put in some measurable goals
Yes.
that we can measure along the way?
We won't do it this way again.
No, okay. I certainly would suggest that we do that.
And we do not need to use a HART contractor. We can always ask the HART marketing firm for recommendations on how to have a tighter request if it goes out.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Well, we had the football championships and a bunch coming down, and there we go. And now we have learned.
Right. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the direct media report. Are you done, Catherine?
Yes, sir.
Direct media.
Okay, on to good news. Okay, Lori isn't here, so this is really good news. Right now for advertising, she has end panels for the National Defense Industrial Association. 3 cars, revenue to THS, and Leah's in here, but you won't like it, $1,080. Red Bull in June, 2 full reps at $5,400. Red Bull pending for August is 2 full reps at $5,400. And HCC, Mr. Robinson's place, a full wrap in June for $3,600.
Wow.
So if all of this comes in, it's $15,480.
To us. In
Yes.
addition to the $44,000 we've already received.
Yes.
That's great news.
So Lori's been pounding.
Good for her. She's been pretty reliable. Thank you, Steve. Any questions? Okay, action item, resolution.
Hi, it's me again. This year, fireworks in Channelside and Channelside Bay Plaza and Franklin Street is on. They're going to have it for Labor Day, which is May 28th, which is a Sunday. So we're recommending extending service from 8 p.m. 8 p.m. until 11 p.m. with 20-minute frequencies. It doesn't do a high volume of number. The cost for that would be $396, and that would come with what we usually do. After 7 p.m., it would be a free fare. So that doesn't come with a high price tag. July 4th is the high price tag. We always do very well on July 4th. July 4th, the price tag would be about $6,000, and that would include also, again, from 7 p.m. until midnight with free fares. And we're just looking for an approval for the amended operations as well as for the free fares for both. They do not at this point have anything on Labor Day, and once they have Labor Day, we'll be coming back to the board for that as well.
So this is Memorial Day.
Memorial Day and July 4th.
Extra and extended service and free fares. And we're footing the bill for this, $3,500?
Correct.
What's in our budget to cover?
We have, if we include this, we have about $20,000 left for the rest of the fiscal year.
What do you say?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Who's doing the fireworks? Is it the city or is it?
I know that my contact is always Daryl Winkler.
Some of it's from CRA. Okay.
Yeah.
I was just curious because just in case we can go get some money from some other folks. I wasn't going to ask you, Bob. I didn't say that.
Well, you knew the answer, so...
I knew part of the answer. I knew part of the answer.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I propose a motion to accept the recommendation to proceed with this as presented.
Okay.
Second.
We have a second. Any other discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Just say nay. Good.
Thank you.
You win.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
Marco Sandusky, please.
Good afternoon, Board. Your next action item involves Streetcar Fest. We would be celebrating the 15th anniversary of the streetcar this year for Streetcar Fest, which is an important anniversary. And we have included in here a resolution for you to consider holding Streetcar Fest on October 21st, which is a Saturday, offering a free fare for Streetcar Fest, contingent upon us making a concerted effort to collaborate with other events along the line, and to make effort to underwrite the cost of the free fares and the extra service.
Sounds great.
One of the things for you to be aware of that we're working on is last year one of the real advantages of Streetcar Fest was the amount of other activity happening on that same day. The pumpkin patch that was taking place in Centro Ybor was a real boon for us. That's something that the Ybor Merchants Association takes the lead with. There have been some changes. The primary person working on that isn't in the area anymore, but we're working closely with them to see if we can try to make sure that activity is coordinated. We're going to coordinate again with the Cupcake Festival at the Saturday Market in Ybor, which is always a fun event, and then we'll make an effort to have entertainment and activity down at Dick Greco Plaza again this year, and maybe look at some creative new ideas to get people to want to come down to that end as well.
Sounds interesting.
Just a question. Didn't traditionally we charge a quarter on the streetcar days? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we did. So this is a departure by doing it for free.
It is.
Last year, the board approved a free fare and we saw a significantly increased ridership. We increased about 67% over the prior year, where we had a 25-cent fare. One of the things that's very helpful for us for Streetcar Fest with the free fare is that we can board and alight people very quickly, so that the cars can be moving more and spending less time getting people on, collecting a fare, and so forth. So the feedback from the event last year with free fares was that having a free fare was very, very positive. Even if people had to wait for a streetcar, they felt a little bit less bad about waiting too, when they knew that they weren't paying anything to participate as well. So,
Jeremy, I have a question. If I recall correctly, the reason we were able to offer the free fares last year was because Crew had sponsored and donated the $7,500, which we don't anticipate this year.
That definitely did help last year. There was the donation from Crew. You can see in your packet the expense summary from last year. We would intend on making a real concerted effort to identify some sponsors, and there are some folks that we know would be interested in participating. We will go after the grants that we have in the past. I think the free fare was something that led the CRAs to be really enthusiastic about supporting it as well. So I kind of look forward to going back to the CRAs with really good news about how much the ridership increased as a result of the free fare. So I guess that we will make, while we don't have the assurance of a $7,500 sponsorship, we would still feel confident that we can get some support for the event and get close to balancing the budget, so that we pull off an event that's successful.
And I'm not necessarily opposed to the free if staff thinks that's the best route to take for both time and however much that would have earned if you did charge 25 cents. Sometimes the cost doesn't outweigh the benefit. But my only thought process is we also had a lot more activities along the line this past year, which also could have increased the ridership. It may not have been directly tied just to the free ride.
Right.
So I'm not sure where that falls or how we would figure out how that falls.
Yeah.
That's it's almost a crapshoot at that point,
Yeah.
because there were so many more activities. So on the one hand, was that drawing more people to come to it? On the flip side, did we have patrons who were showing up and they didn't have to pay the quarter and they had fun things at Kadrisha, so then they walked down to 8th and 15th and then they walked to the pumpkin patch? Because when we, like for us, when we got done with the pumpkin patch, there was no waiting for the streetcar. There was get the screaming children to the car. So how much did we lose from activities? How much did we generate in synergy? It would be very difficult to parse that out. But it's a very, very solid observation as well.
So if we approve it, I imagine we would expect to hear from you in August about how we're doing, August, September.
Absolutely.
Right?
And we can try and get a sponsor too.
Oh, no question.
Yeah, we'll work on sponsorships, and we'll come back to the board. I know in the past the board has established an ad hoc committee, and if you wish to do that is an option too. We're happy to work with members of the board to help identify sponsors and get collaborators to the table as well.
Who makes our cars? Our streetcars? Who makes them?
It's Gameco, a company out of Iowa.
I think even in Iowa they might have $7,500 available to help us offset the cost of operating. I mean, in fact, because we're riding on their cars so much more, I think that would be probably a nice little thing for them to do.
Yeah, you might have
And celebrating 15 years is an important milestone too.
I think that's a pretty important milestone myself. So
that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the pleasure?
You're riding on the, what's it called? Kanoko?
Gameco.
Gomeco. G-O-M-E-C-O. Ida Grove,
They'll be
Iowa.
painting things if we do that, though. Or fixing something else.
Mickey.
That's it.
Sorry, I was jumping in ahead of time. Marco, is there? I'm looking at this the event expense summary report. So last year we got a total of $17,000 and change in sponsorships and grants, and then $25,000 ish expenses from the marketing side, and then the extra services $4,400 and lost fare box is $1,900. So am I reading that correctly? So on top of that,
there is an expense to the event overall, and there has
I
been.
guess what I'm trying to get to is, does that set the benchmark and where we can try and get sponsors? And
right.
and I agree with Councilman Suarez about what are maybe opportunities we haven't explored before that may be a different angle than what we've tried to get. With that, I think it would be it'd be interesting to see. I'm certainly willing to brainstorm and throw ideas out and see what sticks, but certainly, if we can generate as much sponsorship in that and the visibility, hopefully that would create, we could do something pretty spectacular with it, because it is a fun event and it does get a lot of, I think visibility, and hopefully we can get some media involved again and do some of that. I mean, I think it's just such a good opportunity to showcase the importance of the streetcar, that how can we maximize that value is really kind of where I'm trying to get with it, and how do we sell that value to somebody?
Yeah, and
So,
the deal last year basically cost us $30,000. It's a lot of money. I mean, that's a ton of our marketing money.
Yeah. So I'd love to talk to you about that. And on a different subject, when you're going to the CRAs, I would love to be a part of that if it's appropriate for a board member to attend. When you're reporting to them or doing something. I mean, I think it's always good, especially with the CRAs and how they operate, that if somebody from the board was there representing the board. Pardon me?
She's a CRA member.
Yeah, I know she's a member.
On the advisory board, yeah.
But in addition to just, smile, say hello, do that, but make the commitment that, we're all in, with the CRAs as part of, they're a key part of what we do, and we rely on their funding. I think that's great, and I'm happy to jump in there whenever we can, because I think, again, it's a commitment to what we think the importance of this is, and making sure the community understands that. So I think if we can elevate that game as well, I think it'd be terrific. So just another idea I'm trying to throw out there.
Does HART have any financial skin in this game? I know it's a lot of work for your staff, and it's understanding.
Not separately on this budget item. We do have the grant funding, and then we do have the additional time, the time and talent, but not necessarily the tithe. So we do put a lot of time and effort into it that we don't factor back into an operator's agreement. So the regular care and feeding of the marketing staff it's not something that we have a way that we bill back. It's just what we do and what we support. I will say that HART started off this budget cycle with a $13 million hole, which is down to $8 million. So
you're tight.
We're working it. Yes, sir.
Well, that answers that question. So what's the pleasure of the board? It's a good event. I think we're going to have to rely on you guys to produce some serious sponsorship money. So if you come back and you don't have any, we may change the rules of the game.
Right.
And I'd like to know where you are in August, at our August board meeting. So we're not
We'll
right
do
on the
that.
edge. So with that, a motion?
Move to approve 4B.
Second.
Motion?
Second.
A second? Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Yeah. Well, we could get three of that back. Okay, so now we have Mr. Seward is back from his international travel and is here to make a presentation.
Good afternoon. Jeff Seward, Chief Financial Officer for HART. This afternoon's presentation actually is going to be much more on answering the questions that this board has had on service performance. The budget numbers have not changed since you saw them last month, nor do we anticipate large changes in them at all over the next 60 days until adoption in August. However, this conversation that we will have today hopefully will be able to answer your questions on motivation for patrons to use the service, the disposition of the service going into FY18, options for increased service, and answering the questions that you had over the last couple of months. And to answer those questions for you, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Mr. Figgenbaum, our director of...
You're turning it over to me.
Okay.
Steve is our technical side. Yeah.
Changed.
That was a nice try.
Okay.
Yeah. Steve is doing our technical side. So last month, I think Cindy Zambella of our budget office, and I were briefing Commissioner Merman on the HART budget, as previously discussed a few minutes ago. So we apologize for missing that. And not to steal thunder, but this is a conversation that I've been in for 6 or 7 years. I kind of like keeping it going. So as I understand the questions we had, what is our expected demand over the next 5 years? Not being able to do the crystal ball of what's going from point A to point B, and the very important city streetcar study, we're looking at staying within a few percentage of where we are on the ridership. The construction may improve growth, it may hinder growth, and we do know that the Vinnick team has reached out to us that once they start closing down parking lots, they're going to be looking for other alternatives, and the expectation is they will be working with Streetcar and the city to use the garages and Ebor, use different locations in town. But again, that's very much like that Streetcar Fest question that Abby just had. Do we see more people riding on the streetcar because there is no parking downtown, or are we losing more market share to Uber, for instance? Steve did note that the better headways, our headway change from 15 to 20 minutes predated the decrease in ridership by a couple of years. So while we did go from 17,000 hours of service in the 07-08 window down to closer to our 11 to 12,000 now, ridership was softening up before we saw that. We changed our headways. Frequency traditionally will impact the ridership trips, but one of the issues we're facing is, the Dream a Little Dream schedule that we had priced out, 6 a.m. until midnight with a 10-minute frequency and a 15-minute base, is $1.2 million more annually. And if you buy that entire schedule, you can see a ridership increase. But as our morning pilot program showed us, if you just do the morning or just do the frequency or just do a weekend, you're only buying a small piece of the improvement, and you're not buying enough to get that improvement. So if you took good frequency, but it was from noon till 10 at night, you're still missing that morning component to get the first half of somebody's trip. So it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. And as I understand, the question is, which of the small improvements that we could buy would be most effective? And the answer is kind of all of them together. Not the answer you want to hear, but there we go. So of course the 7 a.m. trip on morning service was empty. Well, nobody was going from somewhere else to connect to that 7 a.m. trip, or they were getting to the 8 or the 9 a.m. trip. But if it had been 7 a.m. at 10-minute frequency, would you have seen the same thing? What options would add the most ridership? Letting people ride free is going to add the most ridership, but we're not going to get money back. And I point back to our convention center pilot program we did a few years ago with Director Hamilton. We had really good ridership that year, and we had very strong ridership. Almost 10% of our service was conventioneers. But once we got rid of the free fare, we saw that ridership disappear. So realistically, if we don't have the option to significantly invest in service, your best bet is to make it easier for folks to riding for free. But if you're looking at ridership to continue being 25 to 30% of the budget, it's not going to help you much on that. Which option drops the cost per passenger trip? The cost is pretty fixed, so it's getting more people on there to defray the cost of the trips, which are there already, presuming, again, that they're all paying. A consistent schedule that we start earlier in the morning or run later at night versus a bulk up and then drop off is easier for us to implement. Operationally, we use a lot of that morning time to go out and check the track, do our walkthroughs and our safety checks. Anything would require a shift to that. But something that just gave us a straight day of service would be easier than doing a morning trip and then not coming back. The price tag for the entire system was $42 to $50 million, depending on if you roll in our Tiger grant that we used for the extension back in 2010. If we stopped running, we would owe 50% of that back because we've used half the life of the asset, but we've only used about 25% of the life of the extension. So it would be about $22 to $25 million that we would have to pay back. And when I say we, it's HART because HART is a grantee. So that's not to say that Bob can just waltz off, but it is something we would have to pay back if we discontinued that. Just get those checks. And so what are some other options? Depending on where you look at on your budget, maybe it is time to talk about having a business plan, but a business plan different from what we're doing, like a snapshot of what are other streetcar systems doing to pay for their service. Do we have a record of other streetcar systems in the past 15 years significantly changing how they are funded right? So do we have other systems that had our combination of SSD and a CRA and some level of contribution, and they were able to add gas tax, they were able to add a parking fee, and see what their strategies were, and have somebody come in and look at that. You've got the opportunity to fund that level of study, or look at what could go on that would get us some level of additional money for service or make better use of what we have. Something else which is weighing into our conversation, we do have the city streetcar study going on. So it is a little difficult to plan for a future when your future could be, it could have a different type of vehicle, it could have a different configuration. Or you're looking at what do you do with 2.7 miles and the city decides in the next year or two to take it to a 5-mile system. So a lot of non-answers for your questions, which is what we planners do really well. We're very almost as good as architects, right, Mickey?
Not nearly as good as
No, architects have better answers because you have more math, which is influenced in there. If you just want ridership, the best thing to do is make it cheaper. If you want the ridership to keep paying for itself, it's a little hard. You have to add a much more robust footprint than what we have now. We can do some modeling of if you dropped the streetcar fare to just echo what the HART fare is. It would go down to a $4 day pass as opposed to a $5 day pass. $2 each way instead of $2.50. That's something this board has talked about. You will see a loss in revenue, clearly, but it could make it easier for folks to ride back and forth a little more seamlessly, and then we don't have to worry about the admin function of, is there an upcharge for which pass goes back and forth from one to the other? That is an option we can look at for you. It's not going to be a boatload of additional ridership, but it is one thing that we could look at pretty easily. I know it's nothing but sunshine coming from over here today.
That's it?
I know, right? It should be much more fun.
Yeah,
the next few slides are actual price tags on what these things would look like. So morning service throughout the year, $340,000. And these are using the hourly costs that we have articulated in the current operators agreement. The weekday and weekend frequency, about $500,000. And then what the price tags are to go to these various improvements in service frequencies. The final point on this would be on those 4 peak hours per day by having additional service. We would need to we would recommend putting something else in the operators agreement to allow us a different pricing mode on that, because we don't have a price that allows HART to account for the overtime and the flex issues that we have when we're taking our staff and bringing them in for weird overtime configurations. So the cost models, for instance, that we used for morning service didn't allow us really to capture the overtime and other expenses we had by doing this on a 6-month program as opposed to a permanent change. So that's why we're noting here, per the contract that we have right now, it'd be $182,000, but the true cost for HART, once we start factoring in the cross-training and the travel time back and forth, HART would still be eating some cost there, and we would like to find a way to make sure that we don't have to eat that much. Nothing personal, of course, but everybody has their budget they're looking at. Then from there, it just goes into proposed service levels of pricing out what our schedule is today. We can go through the rest of the presentation, and I can give it back over to Jeff, or we can have service conversations. It's at the pleasure of the board.
If I may ask a question. So when we're doing this, 3 streetcars operating at the 20-minute frequency, to get the 15-minute frequency, does that mean we add another car to
Yes,
the
sir,
line?
you take it down to 4. Because the cycle time is just, when I say the end-to-end cycle time is close enough to 42 minutes or 43 minutes. That
Four cars for 15.
It's 4 for 15, but if we took the fastest we could take a car out there because of track configuration, the fact you have to pull over at the end, right, we have to add a car. We can't squeeze 3.
No,
we
I
can't get 15 minutes.
That's what I wanted to know. If that's the factor.
Yep. So that ups the cost by about 37%.
Is that a factor, Steve? Is that a factor then when, let's say, you go to 10-minute intervals, so you add cars in order to maximize that opportunity?
Yeah, basically, for the current 20-minute, you have 3 cars. For 15-minute, you need 4. It's 4 cars. If you put on 5 cars, you'd be at 12 minutes. And 6 cars, which I believe is the most that you can put on because of the double tracking, you could go to 10 minutes. Okay. You see that it starts getting narrower and narrower as you put more cars on, because there's a relationship there on the distance and the cycle time.
Got it. That's what I did. But I just wanted to verify that, so I understood. Thank you.
I didn't even get to tell my joke.
This is great.
You
Great
did such a
detail.
good
Thank
job
you.
on that, which I was.
Appreciate
Was it a good joke? Is it a clean joke,
It's
Steve?
a clean joke. I was just going to mention that I'm from Iowa. And good luck on trying to get money out of those Iowans. I know, and I can even prove that I'm from Iowa because I have on my windows or my wallpaper on my phone is the Hawkeye. So,
wow.
Well, Steve, all I can tell you is the Field of Dreams is in Iowa too, and so if we ask them, maybe they'll come. We never know. We'll just figure it out.
Well, I do know where Ida Grove is.
Yeah, I bet you do.
Wow, having grown up with Michigan football, that is quite unfortunate.
Remember last year?
Oh,
And I'm from Iowa too, so don't judge.
That's the story.
wow.
That explains so much.
That explains it.
Yeah.
Okay,
How did we
so,
not know?
Moving on.
yeah, discussion, comments?
Thank you for answering all these questions. It's very helpful.
I mean, the ideal situation is we find some level of Powerball to hit, because we would, if we could get a much stronger footprint of service out there, it becomes transformative and it becomes a thing that is always there in the morning. It's always there in the evening. It's frequent enough people don't have to check a timetable. But I think we've had this conversation broadly that the way that we are configured was the funding, regardless of where we started out with an endowment, et cetera, the funding mechanisms now will not fund the level of service necessary to grow a robust service. So we look at our friends in Cincinnati and Detroit who are opening new streetcars. They have much heavier schedules than we have, but they have funding sources for the most part which will bring in annually what they need. So we don't see that many examples of endowment-funded systems where you have a bank account that you can draw against, but then your annual revenues are less than your operating cost. So we just don't see that many models of that service at this point. So at this point, so I'll turn it over to Jeff. So we had built a budget around the same level of service that we have today. And so you've got the breakdown on that of the streetcar operating frequency.
Yes, the budget, and I had mentioned that it hasn't changed in the last 30 days. It's based on the current service model that exists today. And there are some nuances that will change once the final budget comes to you outside of any decision to add additional service or seek additional revenue to fund that service. And I wanted to talk about those specifically during this presentation because, again, the budget is relatively staying flat based on the current service model. A couple of things I want to highlight, though, which is good news. We're starting the piloting of smart card technology next year. We're going to start the installation on the streetcars of our smart card Flamingo readers in August on the streetcars. They'll be operational next summer. So we're moving forward with technology there. We're looking at the addition of Wi-Fi on the streetcar as well. And something that I discussed with Mr. English a couple of months ago, we had an unsolicited proposal to place ATMs up and down the line on at our streetcar stations. And we have worked with the firm ACFN. We're looking at establishing an agreement right now between HART and ACFN. However, the streetcar line revenue will be solely 100% THS's. So we are looking at possibly putting some ATMs in some of our service centers as well, but that would be HART dedicated revenue. So when we come back to you in August with the budget, you will see an additional line of revenue. And I'm sharing this with you today. We have not finalized the agreement yet, but what we're looking at per year after the first year, we're going to deduct the construction costs, the electrical costs, and so on. We're looking at about $80,000 for year number one, and subsequent years will be right around $89,000 a year in revenue that will come directly back to THS. Now, over the 5-year life of the plan, you're looking at about $445,000 additional dollars into the THS budget from ATM fees. So that's the mid-range. There's a low and there's a high, anywhere from $297 to $1.4 million. I go with the mid-range at all times. However, as we sort this out and we get a little more definitive on what that usage will look like, that will be coming back to you in the final budget for your consideration. Also looking at just if you are curious, and this will be in the final budget as well, the preliminary streetcar assessments for the TIFs. Right now we're looking at about a $35,000 increase across the board. In comparison, HART's looking at or the county as a whole looking at about an 8% increase, 8 to 8.8% increase in property valuation across the board. So we're looking at about a $35,000 increase in the TIF for this year as well, or for next year as well. So we'll be bringing that back in August.
Do you mean the special assessment?
Yes.
Not the TIFs.
Well,
they haven't those numbers aren't available yet, I understand.
Yes. So the special assessment districts as well.
And Jeff, for fiscal 19, if the state votes for the change to the ad valorem for homestead, that will impact what THS and HART both are, correct?
It will, but not to the degree that it would impact other county-wide entities due to the density of commercial properties. However, it's still going to have an impact, and we have not evaluated what that impact would be to the specific streetcar budget, but we will. So where are we right now? Next steps. If there are any decisions on service model recommendations or changes, we would need to know those relatively soon so we could work with the City of Tampa on incorporation of that either within their budget or another revenue source. We're looking at bringing back these budgets at the August meeting. The HART will adopt its annual in September, which includes the operating component of the streetcar budget. And the City of Tampa and HART in September approves our final budgets. So that's where we are right now. It's pretty static over where it has been the last year due to the service remaining the same as far as the model as it exists today. But we are very happy about the additional revenues that this ATM that Mr. English brought forward to us. We haven't had any new, fresh revenue coming in to streetcar in some time. So that's great. Over 5 years, almost $500,000. Mm-hmm. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Questions?
How many stations are they planning to put the ATMs at?
11.
All 11? So
as of right now, we are still doing an evaluation on some safety protocols and making sure we have the proper security if it's necessary. But what's really great about this agreement is that there is absolutely zero public funds required to get this implemented. No THS money, no HART money, no taxpayer money. They are 100%. They install it. They hook up the electricity. They pay for the electricity. We're providing the site.
have you asked anyone else that installs if that's the market rate for installing ATMs?
No, this is really this is a shot in the dark deal. It doesn't get any much. I don't think it gets any better than this. It's free, and we get a lot of revenue. So they came to us. They came to me through Christine Burdick. Actually, I introduced them to Catherine and Jeff, and they liked the deal. So we're doing it.
So just making sure if there's an ATM at the stop, is it distributing cash in the amount that is applicable to the $5? So you get $5 bills out of it, not $20 bills. I mean, that's the key to this thing.
And we haven't got that far yet, but hopes and dreams in the future is that there won't be TVMs there anyway to have to put money into.
Yeah, but still.
But still, yes.
Do you happen to know how much is in the endowment fund that would be considered a stable amount? Because I know it goes up and down based on the city's accounting. But I also know that number's gotten a little higher in the last few years.
I do not have it right here.
Okay. And Catherine, you had mentioned that the easiest way to increase ridership would be cut the fares. Have you done any analysis on that?
Not specifically to our system, but within the transit industry, there are a lot of examples. Going as far back as in Denver in the early '80s, was made themselves free for 3 years, for instance. So there is an awful lot of research and Streetcar Fest. Whether or not we can parse it out, we can presume that there's some level of addition when we do promos like Earth Day Ride Free for a Friend or for the